Today, we're going to be exploring what it looks like to actually retire at 55 versus 65. Now, after years of helping people successfully retire and most importantly, stay retired, I've noticed a lot of clients are ready to retire sooner. And it's not just a financial decision. We're going to explore and unpack what it looks like to retire based off of your health, your finances, your family circumstances, and other influences that drive that decision. Now, it's exactly why we're making this video today, is to show you real world examples, clients I work with, and these two different retirement paths and all that's involved so we could help you arrive at that decision for yourself. Now, bonus, we're also going to be talking about one of my very favorite books, which is Die with Zero, and how we align our time, our energy, and our money to help arrive at these decisions. Because remember, we get one life, one retirement. We want to make sure we do it right. Let's go ahead and hop on in. Those years, 55 to 65, there's such a big gap within those 10 years of what you're able to do, right? Think of those that are in their early to mid 50s. They're empty nesters. Maybe there's no grandkids yet. You're able to travel physically. You could push yourself a lot more activity-wise. Financially, we could make certain adjustments. And so what we're going to dive into first before we get into the financials to see if this is possible are what are some big, what I like to call head trash items, right? These are decisions that are getting in the way, saying, you know what? Everybody says 60, 65, that's when I have to retire. But what if we were to remove some of those barriers, go through some of those common myths and be able to debunk them? And at that point, what we'll start to look at is, can we approach this differently? If so, how? And then we'll dive into the financials. The first myth that I see is waiting till 65 to retire. Who says you have to wait till 65? If you're ready to go, you know your numbers, you've done the math, it makes sense, go for it. Right? You could even take Social Security, though it's not advised, as early as 62. The most important thing, though, is retirement is a math equation. Retirement is what it means to you and aligning your spending decisions with what's most important to you. It's not getting to a specific number. It's not getting to a specific age. It's making those decisions that are best for you. Now, the second one, societal expectations, which is saying, hey, what if all my friends don't retire? Am I going to have to make friend groups? Now, is that a reason just to be able to continue to stay at work? I don't think so. That's an excuse for me as I look at it. Go travel. Go make new friends. Go do what you want to do. So just because society puts some rubber stamp saying you get to retire and get your gold watch at 65 or 70, no, if your plan works for you, get on out of work. And don't let the door hit you on the way out. The number 3 myth that I commonly see as a limiting belief is that more is always better, right? Let me just work one more year. Let me just benchmark my happiness, my success to this number on this investment statement or this balance sheet. That's not the case. We need to figure out defining you're enough and then learning when to get off the train, right? Get the goalposts to stop moving. Dr. Benjamin Hardy has a great book on this. For any high achievers, this is a great book to get those milestones to stop moving and hold yourself accountable that when we hit that number, we're done. And along those same lines, this last one is ignoring your financial metrics, right? Once we hit that number, repeat after me. My life is more than my net worth and my balance sheet. I see it all the time. Trust me. There's so many retirees that get cold feet when it comes to retirement. I get it. We're moving from a huge transition in life where we're not only going from having a paycheck every 2 weeks to now being able to live off of what we've saved and accumulated, and some of that's attached to the market. That can be really scary. But what we're also doing is pulling ourselves out of a social environment that we've had for 20 or 30 years. But it's really important to start test driving these decisions ahead of time. Because what the meat of this video is all about today is, could we give ourselves permission just to explore whether or not we could retire earlier, and what would that look like? One of my favorite things is I love to be curious. I love to play with the numbers to say, if you don't have to show up to work for the next 5 years, would you? Just having those options made available to you allows you to go into work so much more confidently. And real quick, if you're still trying to figure out what your number is, if you want to retire early, if you have questions, click on the subscribe button below. Book an appointment with us. We'll go through this retirement analysis to be able to figure out, are you closer than you think? First difference we're going to notice between those who retire at 55 and 65 is their physical health. When you look at this chart here from Bill Perkins of Die with Zero, what we're going to see is our capacity to push ourselves physically, whether it's mountain biking, skiing. I love to surf. I know there's going to come a point in time where I can't surf the same style of waves, or my duration of how long I surf for is going to diminish over time. And that's what this chart is illustrating. That's the point of this video, is if you can get more fulfillment from some of those activities, why not do that now? Because we know those activities are going to change. They're just going to have to as we get into our late 60s and early 70s. And at what point does that ROI cross over? We're saying working that extra year really isn't worth it. Now, if we want a different way of looking at this, we can look at Bill's other illustration, which is looking at the triangle and the symmetry between our time, our money, and our energy, and how we see that it's pretty rare that we ever have congruence and symmetry amongst all three. It's really between ages 30 to 60 do we have an alignment between that, because before age 60, maybe into our 20s and 30s, we may have time and energy, but we don't have money. So that's where we have that acute triangle. Or let's talk about our triangle shapes when we get to the isosceles. When we get over 60s, that's where it starts looking very narrow when we get to health, but we have a lot more time and money. So again, this is one of the things we want to challenge you with. If you can retire and afford to retire sooner, why wouldn't you? Right? That extra ROI by working an extra year or padding your balance sheet, it may not be worth it when you get to the other side, because we're not going to be able to do the same things physically. Number two, family dynamics. What does that look like? You, if you're married, may be an empty nester. You may have just whisked your last kid off to college, or they may have graduated by now. Maybe Wedding Bells isn't in the store yet. They're not getting married. There's no grandkids yet. But in 10 years, there very well could be. And one thing I know as a retirement planner is grandparents tend to follow grandkids around. They tend to sell their primary residence. They follow them around the country. And so before that time comes, this could be a great time for you and your loved one to jet set and travel the country, travel the world, explore with just the two of you. Fall in love again, you're empty nesters. Go on and get after it. And the last one comes down to finances, knowing what you spend. In fact, we could always adjust our expenses. But one of the things that we found when running through a bunch of data is from the Investments and Wealth Institute that 58% of retirees don't even spend the same amount that their portfolio provides. It was only 26% that withdrew up to the same principal amount, and the remaining 14 that were actually pulling principal. This is why it's so important to work with a financial planner to say, if we are going to retire early, if we are going to spend more money up front, do we have the cash flow, the principal to be able to support that? What does the rest of our retirement look like when we get into our late 60s, 70s, and 80s? In fact, there's so much research out there that suggests that retirees, once they get into the back half of retirement in their 70s and 80s, are spending much less than they were in their 50s or 60s. This is what researcher and fellow financial planner Michael Kitces talks about as the go-go, slow-go, no-go years. Again, there's a lot of research to suggest that. So if we know those things, we have that in consideration, we know we're going to spend less when we get into our 70s and 80s, this supports being able to retire sooner. It leads to greater confidence, greater fulfillment when we look at retirement and the decisions we're making. After all, it's about life satisfaction. Let me hit you with this cold hard truth. Retirement satisfaction depends less on your financial resources and maximizing those, and more about optimizing the alignment between your resources and the life stages. More about aligning your spending decisions with your finances, right? Repeat after me. I get one retirement. I want to maximize it. I want to align my spending and my purpose. What we're going after here is not dying as the richest person in the graveyard, but being able to create alignment, symmetry, congruence between how we live our life and how we spend with the assets you've been able to save and accumulate. So because at the end of the day, it's about satisfaction. That's what we're chasing after. It's not about accumulating the most amount of money. It's for a different channel. What we are looking at is how do we create alignment with the resources that we have and the one life that we get to live. So if this registered with you and you're now asking yourself, hey, is the early retirement actually a reality? Or maybe it's just, can I shave off a year or two from where I originally thought? I'm going to retire at 61 instead of 63 or 64. If that's where you're at today, where I want you to challenge yourself is start by knowing your number. How much do you actually spend on a monthly amount? And I made a whole video on how to arrive at that number and the amount that you need. You can go in the show notes and click on the video, watch it there. But you may find you're closer than you think. Another thing is if you're considering early retirement, it's worth considering what we like to call a mini retirement, which is continuing to work, but taking 2 to 3 months off, burning a decent amount of paid time off to go do the thing you were going to do anyway in retirement. Whether that's travel, working part-time somewhere else, be careful with that one. Or maybe it's moving out to the mountains and renting an Airbnb somewhere. Go try it out while you still have your job, because you can always come back to your job and now you have information to go out to the field and test that. And so if that's where you're at today, you're now curious, how do I test this? We're going to close out our video with ways to shape our finances and things we want to consider to help you turn that into a reality. The first one, before we dive into the financials, is take an inventory of your current life. What's missing? Let me ask you this really simple yet profound question of, what do you want? Maybe it's exploring your family and saying, hey, I really want to spend more time with my kids or my grandkids if they're in the picture. How do we make that a reality? Or it's, I want to get my health in check. I want to lose 10 or 15 pounds. I want to start working out. I want to be able to do X when I retire. Guess what? Good news. You can still do that today. So we want to determine what's most important to you and what's lacking in your life as you approach retirement, because retirement is not a cure-all pill. Where you're at today, that's going to meet you, if not only exacerbate, when you have more time on your hands in retirement. So be able to take an inventory of where you're at, things that are perhaps missing or lacking, and action steps you can take to begin to be able to get those things. Number two, on the financial side, and I made a whole video about this earlier, which is figuring out what our number is. I said it before, say it again, retirement is just a math equation. It's what we have versus what goes out and how long that's going to last us for. And if we want to extend what we have built and accumulated, we could always spend less. We could always work a part-time job. It's about having options. And so go watch that video again. If you have questions, that's what we're here for. Because what you're going to want to make sure that your plan has built into it is assumptions for increased taxes, increased inflation, healthcare, cost of living adjustments, those types of things, because we want to make sure that we have enough to be able to spend. So that's why having a plan run by a professional is so crucial, to make sure we include all those different variables. And then lastly, this is really important. I want to make sure you hold yourself accountable. Write it down. When I hit this number, I will retire. When I hit this age, I will retire. I want to do this now, right? Whatever that is, create your list, hold yourself accountable to it. So now that you've seen the differences between what it looks like to potentially retire early at 55 or 60, as opposed to your late 60s and 70s, and asking yourself, is that extra ROI by working an extra year or two really even worth it? What we can begin to see is that retirement planning is far more about just maximizing your assets. It's about aligning your lifestyle with your spending decisions and figuring out what's most important to you in this one life and one retirement that you get to do. And so I hope you're able to take from this video that it's your choice. Personal financial planning is more personal than it is financially. If you have any questions when it comes to your retirement planning, you want us to review it, run a second set of numbers for you, that's what we're here for. Until our next video, we'll see you next time.